Welcome back to Kids Live. Today we're talking about competition between siblings with Michael Grose. Thank you for joining us.
That's a pleasure.
Now, why are kids so competitive with their brothers and sisters?
Oh, look, it comes with the territory. I think kids are very competitive.
Definitely.
We worked out what causes sibling rivalry, and that's having more than one child. And it really does come
So
with
stop
the
at
territory.
one.
Stop at one and you won't have any sibling rivalry.
There you
Or
go.
put about 6 or 7 years between the kids and you'll have that fixed.
Perfect advice.
Yeah, look, we're fairly hierarchical in the way we operate, and families are always competitive. When you're born into a family and then you've got a sibling, you all of a sudden have a rival for attention and affection from mum and dad.
Yep.
And the rivalry shows itself in a number of different ways. It can show itself through fighting and through tension or conflict. Or it can show itself through the differences. So sometimes kids will be rivals and then they'll turn around and go, well, you're the quiet one, I'll be the noisy one, or you're the academic and I'll be the sporty one.
Yep.
And that's in a way how they sort of stop competing, although it is about rivalry in many ways. And rivalry can be a healthy thing. There's good rivalry and there's bad or unhealthy rivalry.
What's the difference?
All right. The unhealthy rivalry is when kids put each other down, unmercifully, continually. The unhealthy rivalry is when the conflict overspills and family life becomes chaotic. Unhealthy rivalry is also about when kids really won't go in and fight for each other in a sense, that they'll actually they have little interest in each other. From my perspective, most rivalry doesn't fit into that form. Most rivalry fits into the healthier form.
Right.
And that healthier form is often the competition between kids actually spurs them on. If you can imagine the War brothers as cricketers, imagine the rivalry with them.
Definitely.
And that sort of would have spurred them on to become good cricketers.
Yep.
Healthy rivalry is about conflict, but that conflict is resolved in ways which can be noisy for mum and dad, but both kids actually, get something out of it. And so I think that rivalry often stands kids in good stead for the jungle, which is the schoolyard, or outside that. So you learn different skills to cope. And good rivalry is about when kids, they may fight, but the bottom line is when the chips are down, they'll really sort of stick with each other and really look out for each other.
There's a bond there, yeah.
There's a bond there.
Yeah.
And from my perspective, that's more of the rivalry I see. So there's healthy rivalry and there's unhealthy rivalry.
Yep.
Mind you, both sorts can be quite noisy and quite difficult for parents to deal with.
Poor mum and dad.
Yeah, look, it is. And particularly rivalry has actually gotten greater in families now that we've shrunk. The average Australian family now has 2 kids. When my generation, when I was having kids, it was 3. When my parents had me, it was 4. So we're shrinking. Now, if you've only got a couple of children, there's only 2 kids, 100% of your rival is sitting across the table every morning as you get up. You've got to look at that damn face across the table.
Exactly.
And if there's 3 or 4 kids in the family, well, there's rivalries and there's also companions as well. So you get competition and companions. So in some ways, when we've got really small families, that competition is really heightened and we really feel it as parents.
Definitely. And do mum and dad sometimes, without knowing it, add to sibling rivalry when maybe they're trying to help, spread the love around?
Look, they do. Sometimes we as parents will contribute to that, unwittingly, unknowingly. One way is when we compare one with another. Now, most parents I meet don't do that purposefully, but sometimes it can just happen even with a phrase of, look, your brother comes home and does his homework straight away, what about you? Yeah. And there's a good reason why I don't do it, because my brother does. And so avoid comparing. When we go in and break up their fights and try and work out who does what, sometimes keeps the rivalry going and doesn't allow kids to resolve their own conflict. And whenever we put kids on a pedestal, sometimes we put kids on a pedestal for their performance, and that will actually drive rivalry as well, because some kids think, gee, I can't be as good as him, so I won't try, or I'll go the other way. So if someone's pretty good at sport, don't make too much of a big deal over that.
Yep.
So there's 3 common, what I call rivalry raisers.
So that's what parents really need to watch out for?
Yeah, and don't go overboard. If kids are good at sport, that's terrific, that's fine, but don't make that such a huge deal, because it's really hard to follow a superstar.
Exactly, yeah.
And so it's all about balance. And I know that parents have gotten that notion and pretty much understand the notion of not comparing, but it still happens. So you need to be really careful about sort of, you know, comparing one with another, because every child's different.
Exactly.
That's one of the keys. And why there's rivalry and why kids become very different is they're looking for their own strengths. So you're the one who's got responsibility, saying, "Oh, well, I'll be the pest," or "You're the sports person," or I'll be the academic one." So kids are looking for their strengths. So part of the key for parents, if they want to downgrade rivalry, is actually to acknowledge the differences of kids and acknowledge their strengths and go, "Yeah, you are the sporty one. Well done, that's terrific," and recognise that kids are different. Sometimes we put them all in the same boat. Because we actually have hopes and dreams when we have kids, and we like to think they're going to be a certain way. You'll always find that one of your kids will be exactly the way you want them, but you'll find that one isn't. And sometimes the one who isn't is different just purely because they want to show that they're different. So you've got to value both of them.
Because they'll be their own person.
They certainly
ultimately.
will, yeah. I also like to, in some ways, I think another way that parents can actually decrease the competition between kids is to, I know it sounds very simple, but is to actually have some fun. Focus on that family fun notion, because it's really hard to fight with someone when you're enjoying, you know, having some time with each other. So it's when you're focusing more on the family aspect than the individual aspect, and that makes the competition decrease and also makes family life more harmonious.
Fantastic. That's great. Thank you for joining us, Michael.
It's a pleasure.